In today's episode of Beyond Resilience, Jamie and Catherine are exploring how caregivers can support themselves and find relief from the high stress and anxiety of caring lovingly for someone facing cancer. Finding healthy ways to cope with this unique challenge is key to staying present, patient, and strong throughout the all-important journey that is the caregiving role.
Hey, how are you? Happy to be with you today.
You too. You too. I feel like I just need to take a breath because it's a Monday morning
Monday morning, got a lot going on.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So
all good though. We're so excited that you all are here to listen to Beyond Resilience and talk about something that is near and dear to our hearts. This is kind of a deep, big topic today.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Not unusual for us, right? But so before we jump in, what's on your heart today?
What's on my heart today? I think it's just the appreciation of life. I was sitting we have a hammock in our backyard, and I thought, I'm going to take some time to actually enjoy this thing. And I did. And, it's amazing when you actually look up. You look up, and we don't do that very often, right? We're focusing straight ahead. And if you're outside, you're able to look up into that deep blue sky. And I timed myself. I thought, okay, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to just enjoy. And, it was amazing. I was able to watch the sun on the needles of the trees and hear the birds. And I was just so in tune to every single moment. And it's just a different perspective. When I got off of there, I was able just to see things maybe a little more clearly. So I wanted to share that experience, and I would really encourage anyone who has an opportunity to just get outside, lay down flat on the ground. It doesn't matter. And just look up. What's on your heart today, Miss Jamie?
Yeah. So I just have to say, as you told that, I couldn't help but think what better way to be grounded and to get yourself grounded than to be on the ground, right? And to have as much surface area of your body as possible actually touching the earth. I think as I sit here today, on my heart is just immense gratitude. I am hosting with a friend and business partner our first together personal growth retreat next weekend. And so my heart's kind of dancing today. I am feeling just immense gratitude for the opportunity to get to do these. So can't wait to tell you about it. So
yes,
and to have you join us.
Oh, yeah.
Today we really want to delve into and focus on the experience that close loved ones, and specifically in this case, I think what we've talked about is a partner or spouse. But the experience that the partner or spouse of someone who is diagnosed with cancer, and maybe even aggressive cancer where the likelihood of cure is low, but really the principles apply to anyone. And their experience of sort of processing that diagnosis and living life together in the midst of all kinds of stuff that may come up. But I'm not going to delve into those details too much because I think they'll emerge over the course of our conversation.
You have experienced this a little bit personally, and I'm wondering if you'd want to share some of those moments, if you're comfortable, because I know it's very deeply personal and probably painful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do know a little bit about what partners, spouses of people diagnosed with cancer and who lose their partners to cancer. Maybe going through my own experience of losing my husband to a sudden cardiac death. So different, right? It was out of the blue and very sudden, about 10 years ago, when our kids were 6 and 8 years old, and we were living life and living life intentionally, and had an amazing relationship, partnership, and totally head over heels in love, and suddenly things changed, and I think, I became a single parent and a widow overnight when I was 45 years old. I think as I think about and as I sit with clients and patients on a cancer journey or other kind of life-threatening health journey, I think what I understand, what I can really relate to as a partner is that sense of sort of having life plans, having things sort of figured out of, how you live life now, how you divide and conquer and live day-to-day life, or at least how we did. And, and what the next few years or even year is like, right? Travel plans and special things that you plan to do together and everyday life. And then, retirement and what your sort of future plans may be together. And suddenly, when those change, it's like I felt like, the rug was pulled out from under me.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
And suddenly
of course.
just rediscovering life. So, and here I am. And so we want to take it back a little bit, right? Often the experience for partners and spouses of people who are diagnosed with cancer, right? There often isn't a sudden death around the time of diagnosis. Certainly, sudden deaths unfortunately do happen sometimes, but so I think the topic for today, we really want to hone in on, how do you go about living life when things may be so suddenly different. So if it's okay, I thought I might start out by sharing a quote that I found that, from the Little Book of Kitchen Table Wisdom by Rachel Naomi Remen. So, from people with cancer, I've learned how to enjoy the minute particulars in life once again. The grace of a hot cup of coffee, the presence of a friend, the blessing of having a new cake of soap, or an hour without pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all so good.
Yeah.
Life is so sweet.
Yeah.
When we just have morsels of it, even, it's just so sweet and so good. I love that. I think that's the biggest aha moment that I get when you're relaying your story to me. And even though it's just different, but I'm thinking about the friends that I have lost, and they've been given potentially short terms of to live. And we don't want to think about that, but we also want to honor them, and it's tough. It's so tough for that partner and spouse to be healthy, and knowing what's coming is got to be just devastating. However, to be fair, it really forces us as teaching. Also, we're learning from their experiences as well to really live life in the present moment. And, it seems like it's so easy to slip into that future tomorrow mode, and to focus on that. And our subconscious is constantly going about the to-do list and what we need to do, instead of really staying in the moment. When we stay in the moment, we can have so many periods of grace and joy even, and just peace that we miss if we're just skipping on to tomorrow.
Absolutely. Right. Right. As you said, either worrying about all the things we need to do or worrying about, the possibilities, right? The possibilities of death or of, someone being changed in some way forever that may be painful or not what we envisioned, right?
I did read an interesting statistic that I wanted to share, and I think this is probably important, but I think of the general population, there's 8 or 9% that have been diagnosed with clinical depression. But that number jumps way up to 20, 22, 23% of the cancer population. So these are cancer patients, not caregivers. These are cancer patients themselves that have been diagnosed with depression. But the good news is, we look on the other side of that. The majority of those who have been diagnosed with cancer are maybe struggling with stress and anxiety, but they're not depressed. But with that said, when you have thoughts of death and they're just consuming, and you're finding yourself difficult, it's interrupting life functioning, that there is help that can be out there, that you can really receive good help and some care taken. So, and for those who are just dealing with the stress and anxiety of this, which is enough, right? It's a full plate of stress and anxiety, both patient or survivor / patient and caregiver. It's what to do, what kinds of things that we can do to mediate that heaviness when we're not depressed, but we're just feeling sad.
Yeah, definitely. And this, what you bring up is so incredibly important. And what I want to just put out there, right, is please, if you're out there and you're experiencing significant anxiety, depression, whatever it may be, or have, any thoughts of self-harm, please get help. Please seek out the support that you need, because you matter, right?
You matter, and life is too short not to make the most of it. And it's just my heart is just so full of these courageous men and women who are the caregivers of these people, of cancer victims, and they're the ones really that need. I mean, they all do, but they're the ones that really need the extra support. And so I would also encourage those people who are caregivers and who are just feeling maybe they got the short end of the stick, and that's perfectly normal to have a little bit of resentment and just anger even. And why this happen when we have all these hopes and dreams? That's perfectly normal, but how to process that is really important, to process it in a healthy way, because there is a healthier way to process it. And I would say, so, Jamie, you want to maybe give us some ways that we might think about processing, this sadness and resentment that maybe worked for you, that would be really helpful for others.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one, allowing yourself time and space to be in it. I've shared this before in some of our conversations, but certainly I used to be the person that felt like life was always supposed to be happy. And if I wasn't happy, then something was wrong with me, right? Then, what's the deal? And so I pushed down a lot of stuff. And I think, losing my husband and, in this case, right, experiencing the grief and loss of life being forever changed, right, by having a partner or spouse diagnosed with cancer, brings up a lot of really intense feelings. The reason I brought up the way I used to be is that suddenly I was in this place that I was facing this deep sadness that I couldn't shove down, right? It consumed me. And so I I allowed myself a lot of time to be and to cry and to talk about my experience, to talk about what I was going through, and I, didn't used to be very good at asking people for help, and suddenly I was in this place where, getting through day-to-day life became really difficult. I suddenly felt like there was so much stuff in terms of adulting that I didn't know that I needed to learn,
and you weren't prepared for.
Exactly. And so I was in the middle of all this grief and sadness, and at the same time felt overwhelmed by the thing that's popping in my head right now is, it was February and we got a big snowfall, and I'm like, how do I start the snowblower? Like, I have no idea, right? And so so asking for help, to one, because that provides some support, but two, that can allow you the time and space that you need to really to process. And for spouses and partners, I would say, seeking out support, either with a therapist, a coach, a spiritual mentor, leader, some other close friend, to really talk through your experience, right? To be able to vent, and it's just so incredibly important. Everyone has different ways, or may have very personal ways of how they want to or best process things that are really big in their lives.
It is a personal, yes.
Yeah. So certainly things like journaling, being in nature, meditation, or taking moments for mindfulness or movement, whatever speaks to you, and it may be a common, and in all likelihood is some combination of things. But what I would say is that, and one of the things definitely that I hear about in working with cancer patients and with their spouses is, we got the diagnosis. It was crazy overwhelming. There were all these things to do between, scans or other assessments and beginning treatment, maybe surgeries, on and on and on. And we were in do it mode, right? It's put it all aside and get this stuff done. And there may be so much fear and sadness or anger or any number of different emotions that may come up. And those may get put, especially for the spouse, may get put on the back burner for a little while as they aim to survive. And sometimes that bracketing or putting things aside for a short time in order to do what you need to do to, get things done. Sometimes some of that is necessary. And ultimately the key is that you take time, that you have time to go back and sit with those feelings, to really allow yourself to process things.
Yeah. Just be patient with yourself too. It's a process. And isn't it, it's interesting, but it seems like a lot of these techniques are also good for cancer patients and survivors. When we talk about stress mediation, it works. It works for all of us. And I would say anytime we're enduring anything that's stressful on either side, these techniques really work.
One of the things that I that comes up quite a bit, actually, especially with spouses and partners, is this idea that, oh my gosh, we have this diagnosis, right? My partner has this new diagnosis, and I'm really scared, and I'm really scared that I might lose him, and that we have life figured out. We have all these plans. And now that might be really different. What will I do? How am I going to live without this person that I so, so deeply love? And that's a lot. And I think the reason that it's so important to really allow yourself the time to feel that fear, to feel that anger, that sadness, whatever it is that's coming up with this realization of mortality, right? Even, and I feel like even in the cases of lower risk cancers, there aren't many cancers where the likelihood of cure is 100%. And for every individual, it is 0 or 100, right? We're either going to beat this or we're not. And so even if it's a, 80, 90% chance of cure, there's still that little bit of uncertainty, that sense of fear can truly show up in anyone. And so by really allowing yourself the time and space and support that you need to be with, to process whatever emotions are coming up, while that can be really hard, that frees up some space, gives you some energy to live in the moment and to have some moments of joy, right? If you push all that stuff down, then it takes a lot of energy to keep it in check and to function in life, let alone to really be present and have moments of joy with your partner, where in some cases your time together may be more limited than you had hoped.
Yeah, and I think that dynamic is even more challenging when you throw in the twist of children. When you have children added to the mix, then you may feel like you have to push it down or bracket it, as you said, and that may be necessary, and that's okay. But I would say that if possible, one of the things that I would encourage those out there to do is to try to incorporate some type of movement, because not only is the physical benefit, and we're not even talking about the physical benefit, we're talking about the psychological benefit of this, is so immeasurable, so good as a way to reduce our cortisol levels and allowing us just to feel better with endorphins and dopamine and all these things, that it just is one step instead of sitting. And it doesn't mean maybe you're not going to think about certain things, but when you're moving, you give your body a chance and your mind a chance to kind of go forward. So it's really important. Self-care is so, so, so important during this time as a caretaker of a cancer patient and survivor. And as a cancer patient survivor, self-care is really important. Focusing on the now, but I love the idea of stillness, and I love the idea of movement.
Yes, absolutely. And you bring up a great point with kids, right? And I think depending on the ages of children and their developmental needs, again, seeking out the support that they may need, right, through their schools, your communities, as well as through other professionals. So important.
Yeah, a great idea. And I love that, because they're going through their own grief, their own grieving time, and they may not understand everything, but things either have changed or will change. So it's really important to not ignore them in this mix, and how you're coping. The coping mechanism of everybody varies differently. I know friends who have coped as caretakers in not such a healthy way. And it really does take its toll on the family and on the cancer survivor / patient who is going through and fighting, for their life. So that's when really, recognizing that we can't do it by ourselves. There's no shame in that. It's actually more courageous to say, you know what, I can't do this myself. And I need to seek out help, because I have thoughts that are just consuming me, and they are. I think about it from the minute I get up till when I go to bed at night.
I want to touch on, if it's okay, Catherine, this idea of, because often what I hear is, I have this partner who has this bad diagnosis. I'm scared, and I want to make sure that we capture life, right? If I am going to lose this person, like earlier than I thought, which, again, I would say there are no guarantees in life, right? Anything can happen to anyone anytime. And then suddenly, cancer is more than anything, I think, often a wake-up call. But, often what goes through people's minds, at least with my clients, is, how do we live life now? How do we make sure we don't miss out? We get as much out of life as we can. In the face of, a partner who may not be able to do all the things that they used to do, or, any host of other challenges that may come up. It may be financial strain or other things. And I just want to share, I think it goes back to the quote, and because often what I hear from the patient, right, the impact, the person with the disease themselves is, oh my gosh, I just couldn't wait to get home and sleep in my bed. And I suddenly had this, great appreciation for, having home cooked meals or being able to eat, or, snuggling with my partner or with my child or grandchild or whatever it is. And so, I think that for me, what's coming up that I really want to put out there is living life in the moment, right? You don't have to do anything wild and crazy, right? So often people are like, oh my gosh, we have all this stuff on our bucket list, on our, dreams and hopes for life. And we've got to get some of that done. And maybe that will work out, and maybe that makes sense, and maybe those things are still a priority, and maybe they're not, or maybe they're not feasible, and so there can be some loss and some sadness and some grief in that. So again, acknowledging it, going with it, and then reframing, right, or allowing yourself to the space, the openness, the curiosity to say, how can we really have some special moments together, just being together, right? What are some very simple things we can do? And so that's often where, certainly I'm all about supporting people and helping them to live life in whatever way they want, whatever way they're passionate about or they're driven to try to do, and to savor those little moments. So I'm wondering, kind of how
I agree. What comes up to me, I have a wonderful friend who I went to college with, and she's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And she has started a caring bridge where she's actually her friend did it for her, but it helps her to journal her treatment and how she's feeling, and little moments of wins and reflection. And it is the sweetest. And then she just sends it out to everybody, and then people can comment. And it's such a wonderful tool for all people to reach in one easy way, and to be able to, we get caught up on her treatment, we get caught up on the latest things, and yes, they are small, but they're so meaningful and they're so sweet, and it really is such a wake-up call for all of us just to enjoy the ride. We're all going to die, all of us. So at some point, it's just being able to take all these little moments, and for her, it's just reflecting and typing out and sending out these of almost like a journal, a digital journal to all of us. And then we can comment and give her encouragement. And she loves it. You can just see, she's so excited to be able to hear from people. I haven't talked to her in years. And so, and even though it saddens me, I'm seeing these moments of just appreciation, spending time with her sons and her, I'm not sure she has grandkids yet, but it's just beautiful. I mean, life is absolutely beautiful. And it allows us to create our own story and enrich it and just add elements of grace and gratitude and peace and forgiveness. That's a big piece too. It's forgiving those who are kind of, they've got that little thorn in your side and it's just enough. It just bugs you. And to be able to release that thorn, take the thorn out and release them. And it releases you in the process to be able to forgive. It's not like you condone anything, but you're forgiving them. And it's not even so helpful for them, it is for you to be able to release that. So I would say that's a big piece of freedom.
Yes. So it's so interesting. You've brought up forgiveness in a couple of our conversations, and I have to say, we might need to have a conversation about that at some point on our podcast, because certainly I hear what you're saying, and for me, there definitely are, clients who I've worked with, and even in some of my own personal work, where that is really challenging and may not feel possible in the moment, right? At this phase. And so that's, I think another, not to get us too off topic, but another really important thing to sit with and to be able to process. And I think we could, again, have a whole episode about forgiveness, and maybe that would be useful.
I mean, I love the idea of creating our story. We can create it however we want to create it. But when we are staying in the present moment and we're forgiving the ones we need to forgive, we're loving the people with all of our heart and telling them and living life the way that gives joy but brings joy. You kind of reap what you sow, kind of thing. It creates an element or an atmosphere where the sadness is part of that, but there's also beauty in it as well. And also the idea of just appreciating that moment, those sweet moments that we have left together, and cherishing that, and just sitting in that with all of its fullness as human beings, and our hearts are full, and being able to give everything that we can is really powerful and really and beautiful at the same time.
One of the things for me with losing my husband that I often sit with is, I know deep, incredible love. And without that amazing love that we have, that we had, and that I will have for him forever, I wouldn't have felt this deep, deep sadness. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. Right? Knowing deep, amazing love is such a privilege. And I think knowing and experiencing and being with a full range of emotions, right, is, without knowing and feeling, allowing yourself to feel that deep sadness, joy's not quite the same, right? And so I think that's what's coming up for me. I think it's so interesting that we're landing on this topic today, and really, for me, this is the stuff I love. This is why I am working as a physician coach now, right? Being able to have conversations about people who suddenly are looking at life, whether it's the patient or the spouse, looking at life in a very different way, with this new information, with this new experience. at being able to sit with them, to process that, to be in that, and then to think about, how do I want to live life, right? That's such a great privilege. And so
I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. It
Yeah.
is such a great privilege, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah, I love it. I feel like with the privilege of joy, on the flip side of that, is the sadness. But without the sadness, we wouldn't feel joy. Without joy, we wouldn't feel sad. They are connected. They are almost one. It is when you're without to be able to love deeply, and to have that joy and have all that gratefulness, that appreciation of these moments. You're going to feel loss and sadness and fear, and maybe in resentment and all this stuff that comes into it. But it's just part of being human. It's the joy of being able to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, absolutely. So that seems like a great spot to sort of start to wrap things up. Any other thoughts or comments that you want to share before we close?
No, I feel like I want to encourage all those out there, though, that if you do have any thoughts or comments about what we've touched on, this was kind of a heavy one today. It's a wonderful one, but please comment and like and share. It really helps us get our message out to the world, who really need to hear hope and encouragement for those not only those cancer survivors and patients, but for those who are caretakers as well. As Jamie so alluded to today, really taking care of those people. Our hearts love you, and we are just so appreciative of tuning in with us and helping us grow our podcast. We're just really grateful. So if you like it, please share and subscribe and leave us a comment.
All right.
Well, I can't wait to hear about your retreat. So, you'll have to come back and tell us all about it.
Yes, I'm excited. Yes, definitely. All right. Well, with that, thank you. Have a good one.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This podcast is here to support you. If you liked it, please rate, review, follow, and share, since that's the best way to grow a community together. Please leave us comments and feedback. We're here to help.